Yeah, so I think the next thing we want to talk about, and with the high school season coming up next week, I mean, this week we're going to be rolling out our Power 25. So just keep an eye out throughout the week. I mean, starting on Monday through next Monday, we'll have 25 through number one coming out with three teams per day, including over the weekend. And then on Monday, we'll have four. We'll have four through one coming out. So keep an eye out for that. I don't think we're going to probably talk exactly about some ranked teams just yet, but I mean maybe if there's a couple teams you guys want to get in on here, um, just talk about really quick. Like feel free, but
I'll jump in.
yeah, go
Um,
for it. Yeah,
well, it's a crazy time of year for us. So we finish up that winter season. We run events that final weekend right before the high school tryouts, and then the turnaround from high school tryouts to the start of the season is quick. And with that, we've talked about it on former podcasts. Like, hey, we're looking at players all winter long, and guys that pop up, add depth to squads that maybe we didn't know about, whatever it may be. Well, hey, that winter season's over. We're compiling all those players, and then now, over the last week and a half since our last event, we're doing, looking at all the players we've compiled, and then we're also taking in all of these coaches' responses. They fill out questionnaires. We base our entire preseason Power 25 off of what these coaches say, the info they give us, and to be quite frank, like we're still waiting on coaches that have not turned in a questionnaire. That makes it extremely hard. To do the best job that we can possibly do when trying to put the Power 25 out there, the top 25 teams in the state. Um, so with that, there's a lot of dynamics on how the heck do we choose a Power 25. A lot of it is the team and the coach. They put, hey, this is a 1 through 5 scale, and this is how good we think we're going to be this year. We definitely look at that. We look at our thoughts. We look at past performance. Certain programs. Edwardsville, Providence Catholic, Joliet Catholic, Nazareth. Like how many state titles? How many? You know, every year in year out. Like how many games are you winning? So absolutely, like programs matter. There's always, certain programs have way more talent coming through their programs than others. Coaches are a big deal in high school baseball. So we're looking at a lot when we do it, and I know you guys could probably fill in. I'm sure I'm missing some other things that we look at, but gosh, going through the Power 25, we spent a lot of time on that last week, and we think we have the top 25 teams in the state that we like. And what we'll do is we'll loosely slot them in that Power 25 order. And then as we write these teams up, we try to work ahead and write them up. Then we'll slot them and say, "Ooh, okay, I actually liked this team slightly more than this team." And it comes out a little bit as you write it. You learn more about the team as you're actually going in and saying, "Ooh, they actually don't have a catcher." Or, "I don't love their, 6 through 9 in the order." Or, "Yeah, they may have two legit arms at the top of the rotation, but where's the depth?" Versus a team that has a ton of depth, but maybe not those top end guys. So I don't know. That's a little bit about the process, Gavin. Kind of what we're facing as a staff here, what we're getting into, and I know a couple of the teams. Like we're gonna have 9 teams hopefully released and out to the public by the time this podcast airs. So I'm totally comfortable talking about the back end of the Power 25. There are some really good teams that we left off that are going to be fun to watch. That we're going to have like right there, right behind the top 25. And as the season goes, it's like, all right, if they start off hot, like, especially depending on who they play, we know those will be teams that'll have a chance to just like jump right in. So this will be an ever changing list as the season goes. But one team that was a sneaky team for me towards the bottom here that we were talking about was Bennett. We're fairly familiar with just them as a program playing in the ESCC. Fairly familiar with a lot of their prospects, especially their top two arms that they have. And I think that's kind of what really caught our eye. And Tyler, I'll let you talk, more on them, as a whole. But Gino Zagoric, and then you've also got Jay Freifenberg. And, to me, just in general, like teams that catch our eyes that make us think, oh, they could be a Power 25 team. I think it probably all starts at like who do you have on the mound? And then go from there. And they've got pieces, they've got some guys. So Tyler, what did you see? Because I'm pretty sure you were involved in that write up and really trying to figure them out.
Yeah, for me, a super high floor. I feel like they're going to be a senior heavy team. which when you're an older team, I feel like that automatically raises your floor as a program. And yeah, you talked on it with Reifenberg and Zagorak. I mean, for my money, that's probably the best 1-2 punch, at least in the ESCC over there. Like, if they're not lethal all regular season, once they get to the playoffs, like that 1-2 is going to be tough to beat. Because most of the time you're only playing probably like 2 games a week come playoff time, so that's going to be a challenge for any opposing lineup. They also have depth on the mound. A couple guys going to Webster, Johnny Rossi, and Tristan Lakis. So they've got arms. It's not just Reifenberg and Zagorak, which, like you were touching on, it's about also what type of depth you have on the mound as well. But a couple bats like Luke Wilds going to St. John's River. We liked him this past summer. He came to, I want to say that was the Chicago Summer ID, and Luke Sakowiak. I hope I'm saying that right, but Luke's a guy we've seen for a while. He came to our state games in August. I liked him at a tournament in Rantoul as well last summer. So they got some stable presences in that lineup as well.
What I love about it too is like there's some guys that weren't totally mentioned or were mentioned kind of later in the preview story that makes you think, wow, okay, we know these guys and they're kind of down the depth chart or in the depth chart. And it's like, okay, if they're, listed as the fifth best arm or the seventh best position player, like they're going to be pretty good, or at least that's what we think. So like one arm that stood out to me that's kind of listed, but they're not sure what they're going to get from him. He's young, is Quinn Rooney, like a big, long, levered, projectable lefty that was in the mid 80s for us. Probably pitches more in the low 80s, but definitely a high ceiling. And then one guy we saw at Joliet, Carson Ebling. I was going to talk about him, and I'll talk about him later at Joliet. But he stood out for me there with the bat and had some notable metrics. Was a sub 7 runner. So regardless, a club to keep an eye on this year. 21-10 last year, and another team that's along the same lines as Bennett. Like Bennett's 3A, 4A here. Hampshire is another team that I think we were interested in them last year. I know Tyler, you saw them, so that also plays into it too. Like, who did we like last year, and how young were they? And then if they're only getting older and more depth and more guys coming through, that stands out as well. But Hampshire was 24-11. They play in that really daunted Fox Valley Conference. It's going to be tough. They're going to take their lumps like everybody in that conference. It's hard not to. But also led on the mound as well, Tyler. So feel free if you got anything on them as well.
Yeah, you kind of hit on it. Like another older team. I feel like honestly, like last year, their best players were juniors, so those guys are seniors now, right? So this is essentially really their year to make a ton of noise, like you said up there in the Fox Valley Conference. But one guy that jumps off the page, like when you look at Hampshire's team, is Kalen Scheider. He's a two-way guy for him. I really like it on the mound. I saw him once on the mound last year, but man, he can hit too. He batted 339 last year. He was also 25 for 25 for stolen base attempts. So the kid can kind of do it all for the Whippers up there. And another guy who's kind of flew under the radar a little bit for a while is Ari Fivelson, outfielder, highly athletic. I think he stars on the football field for him in the fall over there at Hampshire as well. So those are two seniors right off the bat. And then just
Yeah,
to add on to it is a guy like Wilson Wemhoff, another
yeah.
two-way guy. I've long liked him on the mound as well. So Hampshire's got a ton of talent in that senior class, and again, those teams with a ton of seniors, they at minimum have a very high floor.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Fivelson and Wilson Wemhoff as one, and I know Anthony Karbowski as well. And there's more names there to mention and break down at some point, but Hampshire should be an interesting club. Getting into Central Illinois and Southern Illinois, like there's a couple schools here in the mix that we're gonna have towards the bottom end of the Power 25, but they're going to be some of the strongest teams in Southern Illinois and Central Illinois. And Muhammad Seymour, they're a couple of years removed now from Blake Walters when he was there kind of leading the way and just putting up video game type of numbers in Central Illinois and doing it with the bat as well as the arm. But, man, they've got Mason Orton leading the way, left-handed pitcher. And I know they've got a bunch of pieces on the mound, Gavin, that have caught our eye.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, Coach DiFilippo always does a good job with them. Last year they were 28-9, a 3A program out of Central Illinois, in that Apollo Conference. But yeah, they've got some arms, like you said. Mason Orton committed to NIU, probably a real ace for that program. And then they've got Max Young and Miles Woolsey. And I think looking at their lineup too, they've got guys just looking at their stats from last year that are going to be coming back, and they're coming off pretty solid years. So I think the lineup's going to be pretty good. And then when you have three good arms like they have there, I think they're going to be a good program, and they're going to probably win a lot of games again this year if they can kind of do what they did last year as well. So that'll be an interesting team here out of Central Illinois for sure.
All right. So another 3A team though, Gavin, down in Southern Illinois that I wanted to talk about was Triad.
Yep.
They I think are, there's a couple teams down there that we'll get into, especially as we get through this Power 25, but Triad is certainly one of the more interesting ones in my opinion. Coming off a 24-13 year, they've had a couple transfers come in. They were already strong to begin with. They have a guy on the mound that huge ceiling. Actually had an up and down 2024 for them, but Drew Winslow's got some of the best stuff in the state. Basketball player, so who knows like how quickly he'll come out of the gates and be, pitch count wise, fully like ready to go and whatnot. But he's like 90 to 92, touching 93 from a low slot with a crazy good slider. And if it's on and if it's in the zone consistently, like he is a true ace. And they've got a bunch of other arms that are going to add depth. Nolan Keller's a righty that I know we've liked. Nathan Clucker was huge for them last year. They've got Hayden Bernruder as a left-handed reliever that's got some velo and some stuff. Sawyer Brunson's mixed in here. And then I like their offense, guy. Like
Hmm.
they're a pretty complete team, and Coach Bugger's always got them playing well. We lucky enough to talk to him earlier on. Anybody in that lineup that you guys are looking at that sticks out to you?
I mean, I think the first, aside from obviously they bring a lot back, but I think the first thing to note is they got the Sipe brothers now, and I think Keegan Sipe will probably play a pretty big or pretty integral role in that lineup this year. I'm not sure about Cannon, but I mean he's a big left-handed bat that's going to provide some juice for them. Who knows where he's going to hit in the lineup, but I mean with the lineup they already have, and then adding a guy like that, like it's only going to help them and make them just a better team. And then obviously, like you mentioned, Drew, their arms. They've got arms, and yeah, Coach Bugger does a great job down there. So excited to see them this year.
Yeah, you're getting in there, Tyler. Go ahead.
Yeah, another bat that's jumping off the page is Gabe Dever, who you can just plug and play at the top of that lineup. Most likely, like all he did for me at state games was hit and play good outfield. So like to have that guy that you can just plug and play probably at the top of the lineup and play center field for you, I think is going to be huge for Triad as well.
I looking just at the list of players here as we're talking about them, they're gonna have a really good mix of righty lefty hitters in the lineup too. So it's gonna be hard to match up against them. Really like what they have going. And another team that's just been absolutely rolling down there the last couple of years is a 1A squad, Father McGivney. But they're going to find their name in this Power 25 somewhere. 34-5 last year, and I'm just scrolling over here to make sure I've got all their guys. But they lost their catcher, Nick Franklin. He could swing it a little bit. They're going to have to, replace that. But I love what they have coming back. They've got starting pitchers, Cannon Camp, who also plays the infield for them. They've got Ben Sink. They've got all kinds of options. They've got Isaac Wendler, Chase Kelly. I'm probably missing one in there as well, so feel free
Yeah,
to
Mason Holmes.
there you go. Okay.
Yep.
And then offensively, like they've got a lot of guys that have been mainstays in that lineup for a while now. Omar Avalos is only a sophomore, but he started as a freshman, left-handed hitting center fielder. Cannon Camp's a left-handed hitting shortstop, who I love the swing. Drew Kleinheider put up huge numbers last year. He's back at second base. He stole a ton of bases and hit over 400, never strikes out. Justin Turhar can really run, left-handed bat, or actually no, he's a right-handed bat. Isaac Wendler is a physical right-handed bat they have in that lineup. So they just got a lot of pieces here. I'm sure I'm missing on some other guys. So if there's anybody that you guys see as well, but I think they're going to be a tough, tough squad down there.
Yeah, I mean you look at that lineup, and that is not a 1A lineup. You look at 1A teams across the state, and they're probably looking more like a 3A, maybe 4A type of offensive lineup. And then Yeah, like you mentioned, their arms, they've got a lot of talent on the mound too. So they're going to probably be one of the, without a doubt, one of the best teams, if not the best team in 1A. And you're kind of talking about 1A too. You're looking at Ottawa Marquette as well. I mean, they're predominantly one of the top teams in the state in 1A, and I mean they've got a solid squad this year too. That who knows? Like I know we've talked about them as being a potential team to be in the Power 25 here, but they'll probably be more of a bubble team this year, I would think. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Some good 1A teams down here too.
I'm gonna get Hammond in the mix here next because there's a couple schools that we're not sure exactly where we're gonna lay them out in the Power 25, but they were good last year. They look really good on paper right now. You know, one of them that I'm eyeing here, Pete, for you is Stevenson and Morris. So I guess two schools that I'm looking at. I know you got your eyes on Morris a little bit last year. Tyler, you were able to see Stevenson, is that right? Or was that Pete as well last
I
year?
saw them a couple of
Okay.
times last year as well.
Sorry about that. So Stevenson was 25 and 14 last year, 4A. Um, they are no stranger, no shortage of talent up there. They lost some pieces in like Brandon Schultz and some other guys, so they're gonna have to replace that. But the amount of like just names and prospects, I feel like jump off the page at me.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved Brandon Schultz. Like, I thought that kid, he was one of my favorite players to like watch in the state. Like his motor, the way he could track down fly balls, I really liked him. So that definitely hurts. But no, I mean Stevenson, they have one of the, consistently one of the better like crops flowing through that school in that area. So they are not hurting too bad. They got let's see, let's go to the rotation first. That's like one of the things that we really like about them. Let's see, Drew Clark, Brady Rosencrantz going to Missouri. He was hurt a bit last year, but should be good to go this year, this spring. Uni Hamade, long, like huge kid, like 6'6", 6'7", long levers, kind of funky. There's some like something special to that fastball too. Super high spin. He's gonna be an important piece. Then Andrew Langerman, Sam Prosk, and then we got as a relief pitcher. Oh, just Frank Costable throwing 94, playing catch, and then Ryan Harris, another one that we've seen like 92, 93, just right behind him. And then there's even more behind them. We got Sam Adelman, Alex Hahn. I mean, they are just absolutely loaded with the pitching staff. I mean, man, I don't know if you're on anything, Drew, but like to
I think
have,
I mean, I love like just talking about them and hearing you talk about the staff and the fact that they've got Costable that they can go to in a tight game, and he's no like he's been on varsity now for 4 years, like since his freshman year, throwing quality innings. Like he probably relishes that closer role. Ryan Harris to me is just like such a nice commodity to have if you're Stevenson. It's like, man, if he is really good, like then you get like Stevenson is loaded, and they may not even need him a ton. Like who knows? I know he also has played outfield in the past, so I'm not sure what all he'll do at the high school level. But man, they are loaded on the mound. I like their pieces, positionally as well. Like Frank Costable, he can really run, he can really throw in the outfield, he can swing the bat. Mason Nolasco is a guy that's kind of stood out to us. Aiden Crawley, Ryan Martin, they've got interesting pieces up and down that lineup.
and then I mean, yeah, a lot of those kids were actually, a year. They were underclassmen last year, and one of them in particular, Sam Adelman, was an infielder that I really liked last year. So they got the young guys that they've had for a while, like the Ryan Harris's, Frank Constable, Sam Adelman now, and now they're finally getting to the varsity age and they have that experience. So just a well-rounded group with like a really, I mean, well-rounded but pitching heavy, like that's where their depth's really at. So you can never have too much pitching, especially in high school baseball. That's what really, it seems like doing this for a while. That's what the best teams always have is pitching. You can have good bats, but if you can't limit the runs, then doesn't really matter how much you're scoring, unless you are scoring more. But like that's gonna be tough to maintain throughout the year.
Makes it hard in playoff time.
Yeah,
That one and done situation in the playoffs is just tough if you're constantly having to outslug people. I think Tyler, you may have made mention to it, but like those teams that that have those seniors that are college commits, that are just good players, that have been in the program. They get it. They can do the little things to score runs. They can put pressure on teams. And the good coaches around the state, man, they know how to get the most out of their guys and how to kind of utilize the rules, utilize, the bunt game, the run game, the resubstitutions. I mean, there's so many different ways a coach can impact high school baseball. Um, but I really like this team we're about to talk about, Morris. They were 30-4 last year, made a great run in the postseason. They do lose Cody Del Vavro, which he was a stud for them. He was a 3A player of the year when it comes to the IHSBCA. Did it on both sides of the ball. AJ Zweers as well. I know his younger brother's still there and will be a cog behind the plate for them. Um, but what do we got on this team? Because they bring back quite a bit, and they were good last year.
Yeah, they were a team that we saw in the Kickoff Classic a couple times. At least I saw them once, and I saw them again later. Um, we saw them when I saw them in the Kickoff Classic. They lost to Mascuda early in the year, but they really passed the eye test. Like I thought they still looked like a really well-rounded group, a lot of good frames. Like they're just one of those teams where you look at, you're like, all right, they look like they are actually like solid. You know what I mean? Like there's some schools you look at like and it's they don't pass the eye test right away, but they were one that I thought did. And yeah, they are bringing back quite a bit. I mean, they lost Cody; he's a big hit. AJ's another big hit, but their rotation, they're bringing back Brett Bounds, who was a nice right-handed arm that I saw throw well last year. Colin Pfeiffer just keeps getting better, a left-hander. Jack Wheeler, one of the better two-way players in the entire state. He's going to be a big piece on both sides of the ball. And then Merritt Clicker. And then even like Bryce Lee as well on the mound. So I mean, they just got like we're talking about arms, like they got arms for days as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this team.
And one guy, you may have mentioned him, and maybe I missed it, but I really like Zimi Baftiri, their shortstop, committed to
Hmm.
Evansville. Good player, can really defend it. They're going to be strong up the middle with Ziers behind the plate. I like what they have. I definitely think they're going to be in the mix and have that experience. And there's a couple more schools here that may see their names rolled out by the time this podcast comes out. One team that is super tough for me, and I'm almost it's almost hard for me to say them this far down the list, but Nazareth, coming off a 37-1 season. They have been sitting in the top five, I would say, for the past 3-4 years, preseason, throughout the season, whatever it may be. Um, they had an unbelievable 2024 class. When you start going through the names that they had with like Cooper Malamasian, David Cox, John Hughes, Luca Fiore, I know I'm missing a couple, so feel free to get in there. But their 24 class was stacked. So this year to me is like I don't know. I don't know what to think. You know, the beautiful thing for them is they still have maybe the two best hitters in the state. Jaden Fauski, Landon Domi. If you've got that, you've got a lot of good things working for you offensively. Like that's going to make a huge, loud impact, every day in their lineup. Um, did I mention? Yeah, Nick Dertina was another one they lost. Cole Rivesteck was another one they lost. Sorry. But now I'm just clicking into their doc. So the one thing that they do is that they have, at least for me, just look like they have names and they have pieces and they have depth, but it's like, okay, a lot of inexperience. But a lot of names that we like. Andrew Corris, I think, is going to be expected a lot of. Chase Zidlicki, Mac McGarry, um, mentioned Fauski. I mentioned Landon Tomey, but Colin Roche's back with a ton of experience. Between him and Fauski, they'll be more than good behind the plate. But then there's some names across the infield that may be asked to kind of step up, and I'm not so sure. And I think time will tell with this group. They may hit the ground running and be exactly what they've been the last couple years, or they may take their lumps early and figure it out come playoff time, but they're going to be well coached. They've got one of the best staffs in the state. Tyler, you got anything else you want to mention on them?
I just wanted to mention one other offensive piece is like a guy like Cameron Alicon, who was kind of blocked the last couple years, right? Like you just mentioned all the seniors they had, and like he played outfield. Well, like you're not going to play center field over a guy like Luca Fiore in his senior season, and Fauski was playing left, so that's just a guy to keep an eye out for this year, who's finally going to get his opportunity to play every day on varsity.
Yeah, I don't know. If there's any other teams to mention right now,